Hey there, Roy with Apotheca Marketing. We all know that SEO is important to our marketing, but are you sure that you're putting the right effort and budget into the right tactics for SEO? We're going to take a look at some of the myths around SEO and how it might be affecting your business. So we're going to take a look at some of the myths that we hear from our clients and that we see in the industry. We see blogs about them, things that we just know aren't right. And these are in no particular order. So let's take a look at them. One of the myths we see quite often is the idea that duplicate content on your site is going to impact your rankings. And this isn't true. So what we do know is that Google doesn't care if you have duplicate content. It doesn't care if that content's from another site. You may have, for instance, multiple websites and you featured a blog on those websites. You may have a retail site where through multiple means of navigating the site, different categories and different subsections of your site, it's going to produce different URLs for that content. That is not necessarily going to count against you in your rankings. Google will not penalize you for that. What it might do is dilute the impact of backlinks to your site. So if you have third-party sites that are creating links to you and to your content, which is extremely important, right, for your SEO, then they're not going to know which is the right URL to link to. And so it can dilute the impact of that. It can also, if those different pages get picked up in the search engine results and indexed, it can dilute the impact of those individual sites. So you won't, or those individual links, you won't then get as much traffic to a specific link or a specific listing as you would normally without that. So it can cause, for instance, other pages to outrank that page because it is diluted, but it is not counting against your ranking. So Google's not holding it against you. Another common myth that we hear is that social media is used as a signal to Google in how it ranks your site. So if you have a really rockin' Twitter account, you're getting lots of activity on Twitter, you have lots of followers on Facebook, that somehow Google is using that as an indicator about how it should rank your site. And that's not true. But what it can do is definitely drive more traffic to your site. So if you do have very active following on social media, if you are posting lots on those accounts, and it can drive traffic to your site, which ultimately can help generate backlinks, which will help your SEO. So if you have a non-existent social media presence, or if you have a great social media presence, Google isn't looking at that for rankings. Those social media postings may be causing other things that will impact your rankings, but Google is not looking at those signals, quote unquote, to determine how you rank. Here's one that we hear a lot, is that paid search will impact your SEO. And the idea there is that if you don't have a paid search program, if you don't have campaigns running, if you're not spending money on Google, that Google is going to penalize you for that and not rank you as high. And it's very conspiratorial. It sounds like that should probably be the case. But Google has continually reassured the community that that is not the case. So the algorithm that is used to determine rankings for paid search ads is completely separate from how it's determining rankings for your organic search. So those two aren't tied together. Now, similar to some of the other myths that we've heard, there is definitely an impact on your organic search when you run a paid search program. So Google isn't looking at it as an indicator, but much like social media or some of the other things where you're driving more traffic to your site, if through paid advertising, you're getting more visitors, they're seeing your content, they might be backlinking, so you get the idea, right? The more visibility you have, it can ultimately impact your organic listings. The other thing that I will say is that with some of our clients, we've actually done research where we've had an organic listing and a paid listing show up. And people are more likely in that situation to actually click on the organic listing because they're reassured by the fact that you're appearing several times on the page. They're seeing that it's validating that link. And so that by having that paid presence, they know that your site is probably going to provide them the information that they need. That's not Google doing that, but it is impacting consumer behavior. So by having a paid search program, display program, as well as appearing in organic search, you can impact how often people are clicking on your organic search listings. The other thing that we hear a lot is how rank is the most important thing for your SEO program. And you'll see it in ads, and I'm sure you've seen the emails and the ads about it where, the company's claiming that they're going to get you to the first listing on Google and be number one within, X number of days. And rank is important for sure. Like, obviously there's statistics and there's studies that have shown that where you place on the page definitely impacts how often people see you, how much they click through. You definitely don't want to be on the second page, that kind of thing. Like, we get it. Rank is important. But measuring rank is not the key indicator because, as you may know, everybody sees different search results. So Google is basing the results that you see based on your search behavior, based on your geography and demographics. And so the results that you see are going to be different than somebody else, even in your own company, even in your own house. It's all based on personalization, particularly if you're logged in to a Google account. So the rank that I see is different than what my boss might see, which causes all sorts of problems. We get it. But rank is not the results. Obviously, it can impact results, but really what you should be measuring is not rank, but how much money, how many leads that SEO program is driving for you. What keywords are driving conversions for you? Who cares how they're ranking? If it's, driving more money for you, then you focus efforts on that because that is what is performing. That rank is going to change. It's going to be different throughout the company, throughout different locations. So really that's not what you should be measuring. You should be measuring impact and results and how much traffic, how much revenue, and how many conversions that program's driving for you. We get this one a lot from clients who maybe aren't as familiar with SEO or some of the intricacies of it. They just know that they want to be on Google, right? We get that a lot. We want to be on Google. SEO is not something that you can do once. And we see a lot of people think like, hey, I'm launching a site, do some SEO for me, or we're redesigning a site, come in and do some SEO, and then we're done. And what they don't realize is that SEO optimization in general for any marketing program is really an ongoing and iterative process. So, Google changes its algorithm on a daily basis. What was a best practice 3 months ago may actually hinder you today. What was a best practice 2 years ago is definitely something that you should question because it changes all the time. And I've been in the industry long enough, and our company's been doing this long enough, where something that was a best practice a few years ago, it becomes common knowledge that that's what you should do, that's what's going to rank you, will actually, in some cases, hurt you. Or it's a complete waste of time. Google just completely ignores it anymore. And so the idea of just doing something once completely does not take into consideration that it's a changing process. This is an evolving platform that you're on. And so there's constant need to update the site from a technical perspective. There's changes to coding that will need to be done. There's different things that Google looks at. There's like snippets and code and all that kind of stuff, as well as content. Content should be refreshed and redone and reinvigorated and keep adding new content on a regular basis. One of the most effective things that companies are finding now is that if you have a blog that's several years old, that might be out of date, and it's already been indexed, is go change it, go update it, add new graphics, add new content, add new findings to it, bring it up to speed with today, because some of that information might be outdated. And that blog in many cases is going to do much better than a new blog because you have updated it. So the key here is that think about it as an iterative process that takes time. It's something you should be doing as part of your program, ongoing program, and it's not a one and done. We see a lot about the question about subdomains. And so there's this myth that having a subdomain is just as fine as having a subdirectory on your site. And what I mean by this is that, for instance, say you have a blog, and a subdomain would be blog.yourdomain.com. A subdirectory would be yourdomain.com/blog, for instance. Now, Google and industry experts will tell you that having a subdomain is fine, that Google doesn't care about whether it's a subdomain or not. It will index it and it will pick up those pages and the content, and it may rank very well. It may do over time very well, and that's absolutely true. What's misleading about that, and part of the misleading nature of this comes from some of the CMSs that really push this, because that's how they structure their blogs. So there's certain major CMSs that are available in the industry that by default it's blog.yourdomain. The problem with this is that Google sees it as a separate site. And so you need to submit it separately, you need to manage it separately, and you need to often measure it separately. And so while Google doesn't care if it's a subdomain or a subdirectory, and there may be very good business reasons for having a subdomain. Maybe it's a different kind of content. Maybe, for instance, you have recipes.yourdomain.com or instructions or customer service. It may be a completely separate type of content from your main domain, which is fine. It will get indexed. You want to keep it separate in some cases. But if you're hoping to give credit to your main domain, to give that, powerful Google juice of building incoming links and giving credit to the main domain, building up the main domain's, ranks and prestige and content, then doing a subdomain is not going to help that. So you want to do, in that case, a subdirectory if that's at all possible. So again, this is something that can be pretty misleading. You're going to see, conflicting sources of information on that, because again, it is perfectly fine to have a subdomain, but it's a separate site. Google sees it as a separate site. Another myth is that domain age is a factor in ranking. And Google's made it pretty clear that this is not a factor in ranking, that the age of the domain in and of itself doesn't matter. You can start a brand new domain, you can have one that's around for 10 years, and it doesn't matter. What will matter, obviously, is that this is one of those, anecdotal situations where, people see this. They see, well, that site's been around for 10 years and they're getting a lot more love from Google. And yeah, that's true, because they've been developing content for 10 years. So it's not the age of the domain itself. Google's not necessarily going back and looking at when you registered that domain or when the site launched. It's looking at content, and it's looking at links, and it's looking at all of the myriad other signals that it has. And one of those signals is not age. So, and they've said that pretty explicitly. Another myth is that longer content is better. And admittedly, we used to believe this as well. That, because anecdotally, you do tend to see, and studies have shown that most of the sites that are ranking, or most of the pages that are ranking in the top, 5 places, the majority of those have, significant amount of content. I believe one study showed that it was over 1,500 words was the key that it differentiated between those top pages and some of the bottom listings on the search engine results. And Google has basically come out and said that, just because you do an article that's 1,500 to 2,000 words doesn't mean that it's going to do better than something that has 100 words. That sheerly by giving it volume does not improve its relevance or its quality. And so what they're going to be looking at is the content, the quality of the content, its relevance to the search, and not just length. Now, again, length can, especially if it's a quality article or quality content, impact how many people link to it. It can impact how much it's talked about and shared. And so if it's a really great article that happens to be longer and it's not just a piece of fluff, it's going to by its nature get shared more. And that leads to that kind of correlation versus causation, Was it ranking high just because it was long, or because it was long and really high quality and it just happened to be longer? So again, it's one of those things that long content, it can be very effective, but it's not the reason that it's getting ranked high. One of the things that a lot of companies look at is bounce rate, and they think that that is some sort of indicator for ranking of a landing page, for an organic landing page. And Google's basically come out and said that it does not look at Google Analytics data to determine how a page ranks. And so bounce rate, if you don't know what that is when somebody comes to your page, they interact with the content on that page, and then they leave your site without clicking through to anything else. Well, as you may know, bounce rate is kind of being deprecated now. And in fact, in GA4, the early iterations of GA4, which is the analytics tool that is replacing Google Universal Analytics in July of 2023, that right now, the current iteration doesn't even have bounce rate in it. They are rolling out bounce rate, but the definition of bounce rate is changing significantly. So it's more about engagement. And the reason is that websites have changed. So, historically, you had a website that had multiple pages that you click through on. Well, more and more sites are really dynamic. There's not truly different pages on the site. It's generated by the code, and or it's a scrolling page. So you may be engaging for long periods of time with the site. You may be reading a lot of content, you may be watching videos, and not ever actually go to a different page. You may even sign up for something or even purchase something without actually technically going to another page. So that idea of bounce rate is a little bit archaic, and so it's not going to be something that Google considers when they're looking at how they rank your page and your content. There's a lot of companies that'll tell you that backlinks to your website are the main driver for SEO. And they'll spend a lot of time and energy, trying to get those backlinks, trying to buy them. There's a lot of scammy and spammy businesses out there that will go and post backlinks on comment sections of blogs and all that kind of stuff just to get you this influx of links to your site. Obviously, some of those tactics not only don't help you, but they can hurt you. So having a lot of spammy links is not a good indicator for Google, and it actually looks at that. So if it thinks that you're out there buying links and it looks like you're doing some spammy behavior, it can actually hurt your site. So while backlinks are actually absolutely important and imperative to your program, it's something that should happen organically. And it's something that, because you've developed really great content, because it's relevant to other people, people are naturally going to link to your site. Now, there's nothing wrong with going and suggesting that blogs or other people might be interested in your content and having them link to it. But Google definitely has become smart enough to know when you have a program that's out there buying links. And so one of the things it's done is basically say that backlinks is not the most important indicator. It's one of many indicators that they look at, but it is not the primary driver of how you rank. So if you have somebody telling you that you need to go buy something, backlinks from them, or there's some program where they're going to backlink you through all these sites, or that it's the main focus that you should be focusing on instead of developing just rock solid content, then they're misleading you. And so again, backlinks are important, but it's something that can come organically. Obviously, you can help that along by recommending content to people, but it shouldn't be your main focus. Another myth that we see that is kind of residual leftover to how things used to be is keywords in URLs. And so, it used to be that if your domain name had the keyword in it, that was key, right? That was going to drive your business. Same thing with packing URL strings with keywords, where people are kind of spamming the URL to make sure that they have all the relevant keywords in there. That is obviously not a best practice, but it's also not a great indicator for rank. It can impact your results to have keywords, relevant keywords in those URLs that occur naturally by the name of the page and that type of thing. But Google has basically come out and said that it's an extremely minor factor in how they rank pages. So if you're spending a lot of time and energy going through and just trying to get all the relevant keywords into your URL strings, it's not probably worth your time. It can't hurt you unless you're acting really spammy. But it's probably something that you're better off, keeping it organic. It's the name of the page, it's the title of the page, it'll have more influence if it's natural. Another myth that we hear is that meta descriptions impact ranking. And I think part of this is a holdover back to the days when, there was a time when Google actually looked at meta keyword data, and there was an actual field for keywords in the metadata, and people would just pack that with all the possible keywords that they could get on the page. Back in the early days of search, before Google's algorithm became intelligent and was taking over the world, that actually did have some kind of black hat impact on your rankings. Those keyword days are kind of over. Like, Google's not going to rank your page based on the keywords that you jam into the keywords page, into the keyword metadata. The same thing for the description. The description is an opportunity for you to basically tell Google, this is kind of what the page is about, right? This is how we're summarizing the content of the page. It also gives you the opportunity in the meta description to show what you would like in the search results. So that, in the search results page, it has the title of the page, the link, and then it has that brief description. And that's your opportunity to tell Google, like, hey, I would like this to be the description. You can add some calls to action. You can add some really relevant commentary in there that might not be on the page in the first introductory section. Google doesn't necessarily always use your meta description, and it's definitely not using it to rank your page. It is using it to basically understand how you're summarizing the page. It may use it in the search results, but not always. But it's definitely not going to impact your ranking. And last but not least, we all know that when you redesign your site or launch a new site, that there's a lot of factors that go into how Google ranks it. And so one of the big things that we see when people are redesigning a site is they want to make sure that they have 301 redirects pointing from an old URL structure to the new content. And they want to make sure that they have the consistent content, so that they've migrated all that content from their old design into a new redesign. But Google has basically said that even if you have all of the same URL structure and all of the same content, how you design your site can impact your rankings. So you may have been ranking well with your old site design, switched everything over, maintained the URLs, maintained the exact content, and you can see your search results going down. And that's because of how you design the page. So it can impact, how it's laid out, the navigation, the code on the site, image sizes. So there's other factors that go into how your site could be ranking. So anytime you're migrating a site, there is risk. So it's not just about doing 301s and not just about content and not just about URL strings. It's also about the site itself. So just be aware of that people often overlook and think, the design doesn't really matter. It absolutely does. Google has come out and says that changing the layout of your pages can impact SEO. All right, well, I hope this is helpful. This is not all of the myths that we see all the time by any means. There's lots of myths out there. There's lots of misinformation in the industry, unfortunately. It's key that if you're looking to improve your SEO, if you're looking to particularly migrate your site or do something dramatic, you want to make sure that you have an expert on hand that can help guide you in the right direction. So there's a lot of people out there that claim to be experts. And so if you're hearing them spout some of these myths, they're probably not leading you in the right direction. So it is imperative that you're looking at data, that you're looking at, what is actually happening when you make changes, and that you're testing stuff. So again, the algorithms change all the time. So if you make a change, or if you want to make changes to the site, start testing them and making sure that you're not hurting yourself, first of all, and see what will help you improve. So don't just take common wisdom or things that you hear out in the ether, but actually test it yourself and make sure that common wisdom and the things that you used to hear are really going to drive change for you in a positive way. As always, please click like, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and hang around for more content. Thanks.